Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So in the last tutorial what did we do? We did this. So we pressed play and we had our video spin around, play back full screen. So what we're going to do here is I've renamed this level 1, I think it was called sample scene. So I'm going to right click here and go create a new scene and we'll call this cutscene. And it's going to be our first scene. We're going to take this canvas system here with the event system. We're going to go copy. I'm going to go to cutscene, our new scene here, and paste. We'll take our main camera and we'll make it black and a solid color, and we'll save that scene. And then we press play. And there's our video, and we can go back to our level 1 scene, and then we can delete these guys here because we no longer need them. Now I'm going to go back to cutscene and we'll save that. So what we need here is a small script. I'm going to use this one here. Now this scene here basically says wait for seconds, and I've put in the number 8 here. I'll show you in this one. So this is it. It's not terribly long at all. So it basically says void start the coroutine, and then this coroutine is called cutscene, and it says yield return new, and then this is the important bit, wait for seconds, and then the number 8. Now I could declare a variable up here of a float and say call it time, and then write time in here, and then I could change the duration of the kind of the wait or the pause. And hang on, do I have Unity open twice? I think I may. Yes, I do. Let's close that. Don't know what version that is. Anyway, so I'm going to put this into this scene, and this piece of video that we're playing here, this Unity video, is 8 seconds long. So I'm going to create a new object. I'm going to create an empty, and I'm going to rename this empty. I'm going to call it level control, and then CS for cutscene. Now this empty, it shouldn't be part of anything, it's just sits on its own. But you know, if I want to play audio, for example, the audio doesn't have to be on a particular object. So we have object oriented scripting. So sometimes you'll have a script that, you know, doesn't necessarily have to be associated with a specific object. Like this one here. So we're basically saying wait 8 seconds and change scene. So normally in every computer game you'll have an object called a game controller or level controller, and that will have a series of scripts on it that have no specific object that they're associated with. And it's purely out of logistics and convenience, so that when you open this file or this program in 3 months, 6 months, that you know where to find things. You may come up with your own methodology, but this is sort of a fairly standard way of doing it. So I'm going to take this script and drag and drop it there, and then I'm going to press play. And actually, as I think about it, we've told it to wait for 6 or 8 seconds, but then we haven't told it what to do. So up here, we're going to type this in now. So we're going to go, so using what do we want to use here? We want to use the scene manager, and so we want to go the Unity engine dot scene management. Okay, so that's what we're going to, that's the library we're going to call upon. And then down here we're going to say we're going to change scene. So let's do that. So to do that, so we're going to call upon the scene manager. Okay, so, and it's fairly basic. That the terminology has changed over. It used to say load scene, but you didn't have to put in the scene manager. So We're going to wait for 8 seconds, and then here we're going to type in so scene manager. So we're going to call upon this library that we've loaded in, dot load scene, and then we need to add in the name of the scene that we want to load in. We need to put that in a bracket and in inverted commas, and I think ours is call level 1 and LVL level 1. So let's have a quick look in here. So it's small l, small v, small l 1, and that's really important. If we don't get the spelling correct, it shall not work. So we've loaded in this library. If we don't load in the library, so if I comment that out, then this here, you'll see I get an error. It doesn't know, it says does not exist in current context. So you have to have the library loaded in at the start of the script in order for Unity to know what that is. It's part of this this library here. So we'll save that, file save, and then we'll jump back into Unity. We have placed the script on this object here, so now when we press play, here we go. So we're just going to wait our 8 seconds, and then it should jump to the next scene. There we go. So that's basically how you change scene. Now you can change scene for all sorts of reasons. You can change scene on a collision, on a score, on a health. You know, health equals 0, then go to the you are dead scene, and you know, your score reaches a certain point. You can have a victory scene. So the trigger can be almost anything, but that's how you change scenes. So you load in the scene management or scene management library, then call upon it, load scene, and then you have to name the scene. Again, we could turn that into a variable if we wanted, but it's easier just to type in the name. Okay, so let's go back to level 1 and save that there. So now what I want to do is I want to make a non-player character. Now I'm not going to do everything with the non-player character, you know, so I'm going to turn actually these guys off here and the platform. So I'm just going to make a non-player character that sort of has a little kind of patrol. But I have Photoshop open here, so I don't have a sprite that fires a gun or anything. We'll do that probably in the next session. But so I'm going to use this again, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the hue and saturation tab here in Photoshop, and I'm just going to muck with this a little bit. So maybe make him green, and then make him a darker kind of shade. Maybe do make line. So all I'm really trying to do, because these are just placeholders, is I just want to be able to differentiate between this sprite and the other sprite. So I'm going to go OK. I'm going to go File, Save As, and we're in sprites here. I'm going to call this sheet 1. So, and then I'm going to call this NPC 1, so non-player character 1, and save. Oh, hang on. I've got this pop up here. There we go. And then when I go back over here, I should have my sprite sheet. Very good. Now, if you remember, we had to do loads of stuff to do with this other sprite sheet. So we're going to have to do all of that with this one. Now, I could just drop an effect onto that one, but we'd run into problems later on. So let's just very quickly say that this is a multiple sprite sheet and apply that. We're going to the sprite editor, and we're going to slice it. We're going to put our pivot point at the bottom. We're going to hit slice. Now I could go in and tweak all of these to make it much more, you know, make it much better, but I'm just for speed and for it, because it's a tutorial, I'm not going to do that. So I've applied that. There we go. And so I think 0 to 15 is the walk. So I'm going to take just one of these and drag it in. There's my bad guy, and we'll call this NPC1, and I'm going to open up the animation window, and we're going to create an animation for it in our animations folder, and we're going to call this NPC1 1, and we'll call this walk. And we're putting in 0 to 15. We drag and drop it in, and then we can pull this out. Yeah, so let's bring it out to 1 second to there. Okay, and we can press play, and there's our character walking along, so that's fine. And then if you remember, we made a new clip here, and we're going to call this non-player character 1, and we'll call this idle, and we're going to drop in 16 to 32, and we'll make this maybe 3 seconds long, and there he is there. Not ideal, not perfect, but will do. And we can close that. So there's my non-player character. I'm going to give my non-player character a physics 2D box collider, and I'm going to give my non-player character a physics 2D rigid body. There we go. So now, and I'll where's this rigid body? We'll turn off the rotation on Z, so it won't fall over. So I'm going to press play, and it should fall under the weight of gravity. And you can see he's walking, and my player character can walk up and down, and if I wanted to, I could walk into him. I should be able to push him. There we go. So let's take our non-player character here, and we'll go up to the animator. We will make the idle layer, or the idle animation, the default one. We'll go make transition, and then we'll set up these transitions. So we'll add in a parameter. We made a bool, we'll call it walk, and then we want to go from idle to walk. We'll do that when walk is true, and then we will go from walk back to idle when walk is false. Okay, now I'm not really too worried about the animations. We've done that, and hopefully you can I'm going to make a much more complex character shortly with maybe 6 or 7 animations, and we'll see how we get that to work. And it's similar, it just takes a bit more time. So what I'm interested in here is the non-player character walking between 2 spots, having a little path to walk on. So let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to open up this here. We'll have a little look at this script and what it does, and we have a few bits to add into it, but we'll work on them in a minute. So what I've set here is I'll just walk you through the script. I've got a speed. That's going to be the speed that the non-player character walks at. I've got a wait time. We'll get to wait time down here. It's basically how long it waits moving between these kind of waypoints. I've got a start wait time, so one of these is private, so it's worked out internally, and one we get to set. So at the moment it's like basically 1 second. So you reach your destination, wait a second, and then move to the next one. Now we've got a public transform. Now that's interesting because that's got these 2 brackets after it, and those 2 brackets mean, first of all, a transform means it's a location. It's got an X and Y value in 2D. The 2 brackets after it mean it's an array, so it's a list. So this in Unity, in the inspector over here, when I put it on, will allow me to put in as many kind of waypoints as I like. So if I wanted 10, I could put in 10. If I want 2, I'll put in 2. And then each one of them is called move spots. So it'll be move spot 0, move spot 1, move spot 2. So basically, these 2 brackets here allow me to put in a list, and sometimes you'll have a list of, maybe you want the character to fire random bullets, maybe you'll want it to fire, move between random waypoints, maybe you'll want to spawn in random locations, maybe you'll want to spawn random non-player characters. So there's all sorts of things you can use these for. And then I've got this here, which is a private, it's an integer, and it's random spot. So I'm going to generate a random number, and that's the number of the waypoint I'm going to walk to. So we're going to look at how you generate a random number. So first of all, I'm going to say wait time equals start time. So basically it equals 1 second. For now, if we change that value, then obviously that will change. So at the start, it'll just look at this value and say 1 second. And then it's going to pick after that one of these points in space as the selected waypoint that we're walking towards. So the path that the character walks on will not always be the same. Every time you play the game, it will be slightly different. And how does it do that? Well, it says this here, it's a transform. So select the transform, it says random not range. And random dot range is how you pick a number. And then you have to give it a range to pick between. Now, I do not have to give it this here. I could go 0 to 4, and then it'll pick a random number between 1 and 4, or 0 to 10, and it'll pick a random number between 1 and 10. This is moveSpot.length. So this is basically the length of this list. So if there was only one item in this list, it would pick that one item every time. If there were 10 items in that list, then it'll pick between 1 and 10. So this basically dot length is the length of this list. So that's very handy. So we can say, I have a list, the list may change, but that doesn't matter. However number of objects are in the list, pick a number between 1 and the number of objects in the list. Now I have to tell the non-player character to move towards that point. So I go transform that position, so change your position, vector2.move towards. So that basically means move positively on X. And we'll have a look at this. So we're going to have a kind of a flipping problem depending on what spot it's moving towards. We're not going to worry about it too much for now. We'll probably have our character moonwalking backwards at some point. So move towards something. And what are we moving towards? Well, we're moving towards transform that position and then move spot, not random position. So whatever this has become, so let's say it picked number 3, then this is now number 3. So move spot 3 dot position. So move from where you are to number like object 3 dot position and move at this speed here. So speed, which we've set up here, multiplied by time, and we've talked about that before. You know, you're trying to regulate the movement of everything, kind of making it relative to time as opposed to, say, for example, the processor speed. So that's it moving. We could actually stop there and the non-player character would move towards a random waypoint at a speed that we've selected. The rest of this is basically checking which waypoint I'm going to and then randomly picking another one. So I say here, if the distance, so vector2.distance, between this position and this position, and that's how you check for distance. So I could say, say I wanted distance to be I wanted to make it a variable, I could say, you know, distance equal, or, you know, I'd have to call it something else, but I could say, you know, range equals, and then you go, it's vector2.distance, and it's the distance between 2 points. So this point here, so the position of the non-player character and the position of the target. If that distance between the non-player character and the target is less than this very small number, so basically if I'm right beside it, then consider me to have reached the destination. So if I've reached my destination, wait for this amount of time. So we've stipulated that as 1 second. And then we've said pick a new spot. So random spot equals random not range 0 to move line. So pick another one. Now I could pick the same one, but then I'd be beside that, and then I would pick another one. And then it says wait time equals start wait time, and then wait time is minus equals time not delta time. So this is basically counting down. Now these wait times are kind of important because we have to give the character time to get out of range. So if I say, if I'm within range, pick a new number and then go there, and it turns or it starts to move, but it hasn't moved fast enough, then it'll pick another new destination and another new destination. So basically we have to go, so pick a new destination and give it a short amount of time to start moving towards it before we start picking another one. So let's just try that out. Let's just see if it works. Now, before we can get it to work, we need to have those places, those destinations. So I'm going to create an empty. Now, an empty is just a spot in 3D space, and I'm going to call this way1, and then I'm going to duplicate it and call it way2. And I'll duplicate that again, and we'll call it way3. And that's all we'll do for now. So way3. Now where are these waypoints? So there's one there, and if I zoom out, they're miles away. So I'm just going to reset these to 0, 0, 0, and this one to 0, 0, 0. So these are all way up in space because I was working on the canvas in the last tutorial. So these are my 3 waypoints. So I'm going to pick one and go to move, and I'm going to place it, maybe we'll put number 1 over here. We'll put number 2 there, and number 3 we'll put there. Now, if I put this one up here, it would never, the character can't jump. We haven't scripted it to do that. So it would basically walk to here and then stand underneath it. That would be as close as it could get. Okay, so let's press play. Oh, no, we haven't actually assigned them. So let's unplay. Let's take our character. There's lots of stuff we haven't done yet. And put the script on it. Okay, so non-player character controls. And now we've got move spots. And we have to tell it how many are going to be in the list. And there's going to be 3 objects in the list. And we're going to have number 1, number 2, and number 3. And now we can press play. So you can see he's bouncing along. And he has got to waypoint number 2, and he's kind of stuck there. Okay, so let's now try increasing our start wait time. We'll give that, say, 3 seconds, and then we'll go again. Just trying to increase my speed. Oh, okay, he's giving a proper bounce. Okay, so we've reached waypoint number 1. So let's have another look at our script and see if we're doing this correctly. So let's just try that one more time. So we'll press play. And now we're moving towards this waypoint. And I'm just going to turn off this rigid body. I'm going to delete that. I'm not sure why. I'm getting a lot of bouncing. So this basically takes the sort of the physics off it. So if you've reached the waypoint, so this will kind of tell me, aha, if I can, what was causing it to work or not to work. So I've got, so it's working now without the physics. So what we're probably getting there is either friction stopping us from moving, or some other anomaly with the physics. So let's try that again. Let's add the 2D rigid body back in, and we'll make it it's a dynamic object. We'll freeze its rotation so it doesn't go over. We'll give it continuous collision detection, and then we'll take this angular drag and drop it to 0. And we'll leave that on, and we'll turn that on to interpolate. This makes it a little more accurate. Now I think we'll see if the angular drag was what was stopping us. So we should be moving towards the next one by now. So let's see what we can change here. So if I turn off my freeze rotation, so that shouldn't change things. So that's interesting. So this basically turns off the physics. And it's not enjoying that at all. Let's decrease the mass and see if that makes any difference. And it hasn't. Okay, well, we'll have a little look at this. And so rather than me fumbling in the dark here in front of you, you can basically see it working without the rigid body. So I'm going to take the... So this still has physics. It still has a box collider. So I can still shoot at it and it can shoot at me and I can't walk past it. But it's not behaving like my non-player character. So we're going to have to add in... So I'll explore that and see why that didn't work. That's interesting. We have additional things that we need to do. So we need to check, for example, if I'm walking positively or negatively on the x-axis. And if I'm walking positively, I need to flip the sprite. And if I'm walking negatively on x, I need to flip it back. So that way we're always walking in the same way, or in the right, looking in the right direction. I also need to do things like here we've got the animator. So if I go Control C and load that in here, and that way I can down here, oops, I can add in I can get him to walk. So when will we do that? We'll add that in when he's moving. So I'm going to put that in there. And then in here, I'll go, whoops, undo. I'll put that as false. Basically, while he's waiting, he'll go into the idle cycle. So we'll go File, Save All. And we'll nip back in here, and with the rigid body not on it. Now, he still won't turn the right way, but you can just see we've kind of copied and pasted from one script onto another. And he isn't walking because we haven't actually dropped in the animator. And we want non-player character 1. That's one we want to access. So what's it saying? It's saying the variable has not been assigned. No, I think we've done that. Oh, there you can see him walking. So maybe my 3 seconds wait time is too long. So I'll put that in as 1. Yeah, so we're waiting too long for him to walk. But it is working, you can see. So anyway, so we have to refine these. We're just kind of looking at some kind of basic techniques. There's quite a bit in this. So, you know, we're figuring out how to make random numbers. We're figuring out how to, you know, figure out distance. And we're using, you know, arrays so we can have lists of objects and then reference those lists of objects. And trying to control, well, this is kind of very, very basic rudimentary sort of AI. So how to control a non-player character to make it exhibit a behavior that, you know, suggests someone has thought about where it should be on the screen. All right, so we'll leave that there for now, and we'll work on this and the solutions to some of these conundrums in class.